everyone, I'm Lucho. Welcome to Selling with HubSpot. We are here with Gabe Sosa, and Gabe's been working with Digifinance for about a year now with deals together. Gabe's actually one of the top sales reps from HubSpot that we work with. He sends us deals all the time. So we've brought Gabe into our podcast here today to talk a bit about his sales experience, his experience with HubSpot, how his role has evolved, how selling HubSpot has evolved over the years. And yeah, just some of his life experience and lessons that he draws from there to sales. So, Gabe, want to give us a bit of an introduction on yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Lucho. Like he said, I've been working with him and the Defiance team just for probably just over a year now. Reached out trying to sell something, and I was like, "Oh, who's Defiance?" Connected with the team, and from there, I was just like, "Wow, this guy sounds great." And every deal I've sent your way has turned out, with raving reviews of your services and what you offer. So, hence why I keep bringing you more deals. So, like you said, we're working here at HubSpot for just a couple of years now. Came from a life insurance sales world. That's kind of like my first dip into sales. After that, graduated college, looked up what's the best sales roles in terms of compensation. Had like medical sales, tech sales, everything. Joined tech sales, became a BDR, and the rest is history. So yeah, it's kind of like just short and sweet what my story is like and why I'm here now at HubSpot.
Awesome. And so when you started at HubSpot, what was your initial role?
I have been a BDR at a previous company, then was an account executive at a different one. It's one of the HubSpot website. Man, there's a difference between selling a must-have to a nice-to-have, and that other company was definitely a nice-to-have software. And this was post-pandemic boom where everybody was buying software left and right. Like folks were becoming more conscious about cutting costs, too many software solutions in place for a lot of businesses. So yeah, that was a tough year. It was my first gig in a full sales cycle, but you learn a lot when you're in that kind of environment.
I feel you. And what kind of things did you do as a BDR?
The same thing BDRs do today is just dialing every single day, sending cold emails, setting up meetings for AEs. I'd say the biggest difference for those folks that are BDRs here at HubSpot, or I've worked with a BDR at HubSpot, this was pure enterprise software. So my job was essentially cold calling, booking a meeting with me initially, and qualifying them. Like, hey, do you have budget? Do you have timing? Do you have all these things? Then bringing that to the AE, and it was up to the AE to decide, like, yeah, I want to chat with this person. I don't want to chat with this person. So yeah, quite a different motion. It was like companies of like 5K and above over there.
And how does that compare to HubSpot BDRs nowadays?
Well, I haven't worked with BDR just because in small base we don't. But I feel like there's a little bit of overlap on what a BDR does for those mid-market corp deals to what a SB rep does, right? Like we still have to prospect every day. We still have to go and find the business. So I'd say the biggest difference, if you're thinking about what a BDR is meant to do, which is prospecting, right, building pipeline, is here at HubSpot in the SMB world is you're usually dealing with BPs, C-level executives, and in the enterprise world to get a hold of those folks is a lot tougher, right?
Makes sense. Man, yeah. And how was it moving on to HubSpot then?
It was a blessing, to be honest. Like I said, coming from a sales job where, you were, first of all, I was in a territory where not a lot of folks were familiar with technology at all. And the few that were, like I said, I had too many technology solutions. Just to give you context, like in the 1 year I was there, I grew the customer base in that territory by 20%, and the company had been around for God knows how long. So it was just like, okay, not the best. But anyways, it was great just because now I was selling something that actually folks were excited about having, right? It was something that actually showed value, like tangible value when you ran reports, when your sales reps now could close more deals, when your marketing was out of nowhere, more effective because you were retargeting and customizing at scale. So those conversations were a lot easier to have, a lot more pleasant to have with prospects, as opposed to previously selling something that you almost felt like this is not worth it for you, right? You're trying to put that saying that goes, it's like a square peg down a round hole, right? So it was not a fit, but you were always encouraged to fit that in there. And here at HubSpot, that's just not the case. Every business needs something like HubSpot.
So when was it exactly that you started at HubSpot? 2023. So HubSpot's evolved a bit since then. Have you seen any changes, any trends that have changed, or any methodologies that have changed in selling HubSpot that you're seeing in your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I'd probably say, when I first joined, I was in the tail end of, I feel like maybe an era of HubSpot where like there was so much inbound demand and the team was still relatively short, where you could be very active, right? Like you could maybe hit your number by just waiting for inbound deals to come your way, not really do a lot of prospecting, right? But now as the team has grown, as technology and AI has grown as well, where folks are using AI tools to just spray emails left and right, folks inboxes are getting inundated with cold emails. People are getting cold calls all day with like these power dialers that are out there. Definitely come to the realization that in order to be successful at HubSpot now, you need to be a lot more tailored. You need to be a lot more intentional on your outreach. And when maybe in the past you could just blast an email about, hey, in a quarter, like you want to chat, that could work. Now you actually need to bring value in those conversations. You need to add what challenges those personas could have, how HubSpot solves them, just to get an initial meeting with them. Just continuously talking about value, right? Like finding pains, never letting go, and never letting, the name of HubSpot let you think that, oh, just because we're HubSpot, we're going to close the sale because our products are awesome. It's like, no, you're actually going to work for it.
Oh yeah, a lot. And man, I feel you with like, I get a lot of emails every day that I'm not sure how, but I can tell that they've been generated with AI, but they're really good. Like they are good emails, but I discard them because I get so many of them. Whereas like, I don't know, 3 years ago, if I'd gotten these emails, like just one, I would have definitely opened and had a look and had a conversation. But now you're going to have to work a lot harder to get my attention. So I'm very interested in how you're approaching that. I mean, you mentioned you're working harder and you're researching more. So what exactly is it that's getting you to open those doors?
I think working harder could be a way of seeing it. I think it just means getting more organized, right?
So what exactly is it that you're doing? I mean, you had a lot of inbound leads, or even if you were cold calling, you put a little bit of effort in an email and made it relevant. But now people are getting emails that are extremely relevant, or they're getting cold calls that are extremely relevant to them because AI's made it so much easier to do that. How are you overcoming that saturation in quality reach outs?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you this, it's not a transition that's easy by any means. I still struggle with it. Like I find myself maybe just spraying a bunch of people with emails. In the aspects of where I had success, it's definitely including a multi-channel approach. Like now that's necessary. That you can just email folks and hope for the best, or just call and hope for the best. Now you got to have a strategy where you're hitting them an email, you're giving them a cold call, where you're leaving a voicemail, they don't answer, pointing them to the email, and then you got to go on LinkedIn, add them, add something of value. Also, maybe pointing them back to the email, right? So like you're making sure you're staying top of mind. And that's kind of like the work that it takes now to get an initial meeting with these folks, right? Another aspect of it comes to it's like finding out intent signals. Like I've seen a lot of success with that. It's just like, hey, are there new hires? Is there a new VP of sales? Are they hiring for sales folks? Are they hiring for marketing folks, right? Like now you got to find these different nuggets, right? That you can then implement in your outreach that you're going to make folks be like, I haven't thought about marketing automation software or sales CRM, but like I am hiring for marketing. So maybe it does make sense to have this conversation, right? And I would say the third aspect to that that's key is here at HubSpot, we can work with pretty much any company under the sun, right? Especially in SMB. God knows how many businesses fall within that range. So a key, and just recently I kind of seen what happens when you prioritize this is finding accounts and finding companies that are good fits for HubSpot, right? So not just working anybody because we can, but actually going after those companies that look like they will value bringing more folks to their website, that they will value having everything connected in one place, right? So things like sales and market leadership within the organization, or like I said before, they're hiring for these different positions, right? So it's a combination of one, finding value, two, finding intent signals within these accounts, and three, just making sure that these accounts look like they'll be a good fit for HubSpot.
That totally makes sense. I mean, definitely have to be much more intentional about not just like how you're going to message them and like which channels, but also how you're going to filter your list of prospects to make sure you're putting your time into the ones that are more likely to close because they have the right fit from the signals from what you're seeing about them. Something like that, right?
And I mean, your work deals with me, so that's exactly how it is.
Absolutely. On the multi-channel approach, I'm curious here because this is a conversation that I've been having a lot lately with different people. And I've seen two trends here. What's your approach there? Do you set blocks of time per channel, or do you go by the clients and approach different channels? Because I've talked to people who do it both ways, or do you have a different strategy altogether? Do you block like LinkedIn time, text messaging time, email time, or do you go by, okay, I'm going to message these 10 accounts through all the channels?
Yeah, like I said before, that's kind of like something I'm fine tuning today, right? It definitely is key to time block, right? Like I found that I've time blocks my calendar. Do I follow them every day? Not really. And those are the days where at the end of the day, I'm like, oh man, crap. Like I could have done better if you would have stuck to this. Obviously, in the SMB world, you're getting hit with so many things at once that you almost got to block out that noise and just be like, hey, if I put in 30 minutes on this block to do XYZ, like that's the only thing I'm going to be doing. But to your point, whenever I do it, it's not specific so much to channel, right? Like by channel, except maybe like a cold call block time, right? Like I do that on Fridays in the mornings, just like have a couple hours of cold calling, right? But it's more about like, okay, what accounts am I hitting, right? So it could be high rated accounts, right? Spend an hour just going through like 5 to 10 high rated accounts, going in there and finding 3 to 5 good prospects to reach out to, and then spend that time tailoring an email to them, sending a LinkedIn message, shooting them a call, and then enrolling them in a sequence that's going to remind me again in a couple of days to do something similar, right? Same thing with like competitor reps. Maybe I spend an hour on a Wednesday doing, hey, anybody with a Salesforce instance, like let me go and send some messaging to see if it's some appetite about making a switch from Salesforce to HubSpot. So I would say it's not really about channel, but more about like what type of accounts I'm going after that those time blocks have within them.
Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. Love it. And now, as you were talking about this, I was reminded, I think there's some overlap or some lessons that we can draw from something that you really enjoy in life, which is backpacking. Because in backpacking, you have to really strategize a bit about like what your backpacking approach is going to be, right? Maybe you can talk to us a bit about backpacking and lessons that you can draw from backpacking for sales. What exactly is backpacking to begin with? Because maybe some people just have no idea. They've never backpacked in their life. So what exactly is backpacking?
So there's two different definitions. If you go on Google, look up what it is. So there's one backpacking, which just means pretty much like mountaineering, right? So like going hiking with a backpack on, like that's one type of backpacking. The other one I'm was referring more to in our conversations was just putting all your belongings in a backpack and going somewhere in the world and spend a month there, a couple months, whatever, and kind of like just living out of the backpack, right? So I had the privilege back in college to be able to do that a couple times in Vietnam and Thailand. I'm particularly in Vietnam at a time where it was not yet so touristy. I heard it's up and coming, so good for them. But I rode a motorcycle from North Vietnam all the way to South Vietnam when I caught my flight back home, right? And I think the biggest takeaway from that I try to always look at my personal experiences and see like how can I apply some learnings from that into what I do every day is the ability to just figure things out on a whim, right? There were a lot of times when I almost got run over in my little scooter. I would run out of gas and end up in some random middle of nowhere town with like one hotel where nobody spoke English, right? No signal whatsoever. So just being able to figure these things out, right? At the end of the day, I always look back, I'm like, I figured every single thing out. Was it rough? Sure. Some days sucked, some days were awesome. But at the end of that trip, there was always that feeling of like, oh man, I did that. No matter how tough it seemed along the way, how many times I fell. Sometimes I'd be in the middle of nowhere and be like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go sleep in some random hill, right? Because I don't see a city within 100 miles. I feel like in sales applies because in sales, you have so many things coming your way, so many things that go wrong, so many things outside your control. And if you just have that mindset going into them, I was just like, I will figure this out. I always have, and I always will. It's a key thing to keep in you saying as you work through a lot of these deals, particularly in SMB, where we have to do such a high volume of deals, where a lot of things are normally going to go wrong that you just have to figure out. That's a mentality that you just got to have.
That totally makes sense, dude. The big lesson there is you can plan all you want. And I'm huge on planning. I love planning. I'm crazy for planning like logistics for anything. If I'm going to go take a massive trip, I want to have every detail planned out. No matter what you're planning, things are going to go wrong. Things are never going to go according to plan. And the thing is, if you get stuck with what your idea was of how things were going to be, you can easily collapse. And this can happen in a sales call as well. You research your client, you have a plan where you want to take the call, that you've had some conversations with someone from the company before, and now you're going to do the pitch with the CEO, but then somebody else shows up and the call you weren't expecting, the CFO comes in, he asks you a whole bunch of questions, totally derails your plan, or the CEO drops out. And so what are you going to do now? You can't just like have everything collapse. You have to be able to also just move from your plan and figure things out on the spot. So I think that's a wonderful lesson. I mean, it doesn't mean you
You
should.
give me some flashbacks right now with everything you just said.
Yeah, because I mean, things never go according to plan, and you gotta have a little faith and just. I mean, planning is absolutely necessary because I think there's something about planning that it also gets you prepped for improvising. It's kind of like a musician. Like before you can improvise in a guitar, you got to know the notes, man. Like you have to have played the guitar. You got to prep. You got to train. You got to get to know it. Then you can improvise. So y- prepping helps for that. The planning helps, but then you also have to, if you have that flexibility of adapting to the situation and basically like dancing with your prospect. Dancing is a two-way relationship. I mean, you're feeling where the conversation is going. You can't just stick to the plan and be hardcore about it. So that's a great lesson from backpacking. Absolutely. I mean, I can imagine you totally planned a lot of, I mean, you planned you were going to Vietnam, you planned you were going to this place and that place, but then maybe the scooter broke down. You ended up in somewhere you had no idea you were going to go, things like that. So it totally deviates from the plan, but in the end, things are okay. And in sales, if you're not willing to deviate from the plan, your psyche is going to collapse mid-call. And that is going to have a huge impact. So you got to keep your cool. And another thing we were talking about that I think is super related to this is experiences in your life, how you can draw from experiences in your life or like from your what's going on in your life and how you can keep your cool, your mentality during a sales call and the impact that that has, the impact that what's going on around your work life has on your performance. Do you have some thoughts there that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So funny enough, I actually, it's not like an original thought by any means. I stole this or actually started thinking more about it. A few months back, we had I don't want to call him a LinkedIn influencer because he's much more than that, but he's Scott Lisi, I believe it's how you pronounce his last name. He's very famous on LinkedIn. He was a CRO, but Scott Lisi. L, yeah, I believe, yeah, I'm probably butchering his last name, but it's Lese, I believe. But yeah, he came in one of our like meetings, right? They brought him in. He's had multiple successful exits as a sales leader. So he's, been around the block. And something that he said that resonated with me a lot at that particular time, just because I felt like, I was like, wow, this is exactly what I'm going through, is he talked about the importance of having things outside of work that you're excited and looking forward to every single day, right? And at that moment, I was in a point where I was like, not hitting great numbers. I feel like I was working past 5 p.m. because I wasn't being so structured with my day. And I was not going to the gym, right? I wasn't doing the things I love doing outside of work. And that was just kind of like a feedback loop, right? Like, because I am not doing these things I like, then I am not going my best into work. So, it was just sort of like, but going back to the gym, running more, hanging out with my pop, or go hanging out with my fiance, right? Like when you start doing these things that make you happy outside of work and you're like, okay, time to disconnect, doesn't mean you don't have to go back and work past 5 p.m., right? If need be, but you're still doing these things that make you happy. And it almost like, it's like energizes you back to be your best at work, right? And, I think that's huge. I think that's key. And other things too. It's like, hey, I love traveling. I want to take my fiance to Asia. I love that continent. So it's like, that motivates you to work harder, obviously make more money, and then be able to do those things, right?
Absolutely. And that's another key thing to have that end goal in mind. I mean, so I love money. Money's fantastic. I'm all about it. But but money's a means. Money's not an ends in itself because money represents something. It represents the freedom to do what you want to do. So you want to travel to Asia. So like, why do you want money? You want to travel with your fiance to Asia. That's a great reason why you want money. So now hey, I want to take this trip to, I don't know, Thailand next time. Or what's your next destination?
Like, cool. We're thinking about the Philippines for our honeymoon, so we'll see.
That's wonderful. So you can start picturing yourself out in the Philippines and whatnot. You can put a map of the Philippines in your wall there, have a nice picture and put your faces in there. So that they have that visual effect every day, and that's going to inspire you. That's because that's the reason why you want the money. You don't just want dollars in your account. No, you want to have the freedom to take a trip to the Philippines with your fiance, enjoy your time there, relax, and then you can come back and make more money. I love that because money's wonderful, but it's really what allows you to do the things that you want to do that make you happy. And being happy is what's going to build your ability to make more money and do more things that you like because you have more money that enables you to do those things and so on.
It's a positive feedback loop in that case, right?
Absolutely. And that feedback loop goes both ways. And I've lived that too. There was a time when I worked 16, 18 hours a day and it was crazy. And everything was kind of going down. And it wasn't until I started exercising, I started putting some time, investing in myself, that business actually started picking up. So I can totally relate to that. You always got to look out for yourself, be in a good spot. And when you're in that good spot, that totally comes back into your sales performance, into your business performance overall. So I love that. I'm going to look into Scott Pacey. And by the way, I was just remembering what we were talking about, the planning and having the flexibility to deviate from the plan. A book that I highly recommend, I don't know if you've read it, is this Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
I heard really good things about it, but I haven't listened to it yet or read it.
Yeah, highly recommend it. I mean, it's great for life in general, but I've also drawn a lot of sales lessons from it. So yeah, he's a former Navy SEAL and now he does the bicing and whatnot. But it's very cool, very cool. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I heard that guy's voice in a podcast. He sounds like you don't want to mess with him.
Oh, yeah. Like his voice going like this, like
Yeah, Joko, it's insane.
he's got a deep voice. You see, he's got a big neck. I mean, he's a big guy, and yeah, he's mad killer. You do not want to mess with Jocko, but yeah, he's got some really great insights into just putting your life in order and things that you can, like lessons from SEALs training, from battle experience that you can take from that and apply them into your business life in general. So yeah, that's a great book. I highly recommend it. But yeah, backpacking, man. I don't think I've never been backpacking. I've done a lot of wilderness experiences, but I've never like been back.
I was gonna say, man, you do some crazy things as well. So I'm sure you can get some lessons from those.
Oh yeah. So my next challenge is probably going to be, I keep training for like surviving a year in Alaska and all, but right now I'm just going to do a full bushcrafting experience, like bushcraft my shelter and just survive in the woods for 4 days. I've never done that. So that's my next one. I might be doing that.
Do not compare anything to what you're about to do. So I'll talk to you after all this happens. So you're going to be so zen. You're going to be like, this is everything I learned for business from 4 days surviving and fighting bears in Patagonia.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it can be anything. Like just as long as you put a challenge and you do something that nourishes your life, you can take lessons from that and apply them to your sales process. And I think that's the beautiful thing. Like it's finding what makes you happy, and that happiness is what's gonna come back and help you. It's gonna help you sell because you're gonna bring that positive energy into your sales process, and it's gonna help you just in overall everything that you want to do in your life. And sometimes the hardest thing is actually taking that first step. Like you're in a bad place and just, I mean, I don't know how you went about it, but for me, it was just like, I'm in a bad place. I have to do something. I have to change things around. And I signed up for Krav Maga and just started going there and just getting punched. Cause I mean, I was terrible, just getting punched like crazy. But I was like, you know what? I got to change something. So I just got hard headed and said, I'm going to try this and see how it goes. And just doing that, it set off a whole chain of events that have led to me being radically happier with my outcome in life and performance overall. How did you start? How did you get into that?
Pretty similar to you, right? Like it's like any habit. Some people think like, oh, Monday I start my diet, right? And then they think on Monday they're gonna turn a 180 and then like complete change every habit they have. It's like you gotta start one thing at a time, right? So in your case, I went to one Krav Maga class. I liked it, and I just kept going, and that turned into something else, and so on and so on. And like your analogy is just snowball, right? So in my case, it just the next day I was like, hey, let me go back to the gym. A couple of days later, hey, let's go running, right? Like play instead of working straight till night. Like let me play with my pup. Let me hang out with my fiance. We're watching Modern Family, right? Like super funny show. And I think the biggest like switch where I was like, wow, this actually works is we went on a trip. Can't remember exactly where it was right now. I think it was might have been North Carolina or Nashville. And when I came back from that trip without thinking at all about work or like what comes along with it, I just came back with a different perspective. I felt a lot more refreshed, and I started like not being so focused on being in the day to day, but rather being able to take a step back and look at it like from a big picture, which is, hey, you're here to sell a solution people need, and you're in an organization that thankfully gives you a platform where you can both succeed and make a lot of money, so you can do the personal things that you like. So when you look at it that way, instead of being so worried about this deal or that deal or getting back to this person, when you keep the main thing, which is, these are the things I want to do, and I'm in an organization that's going to let me do these things, you go into it a lot better, right? You feel a lot happier, you work a lot better, you sound a lot better. So
I love it. That's fantastic. And I think it has a lot more value because you've had that experience of being in a sales team and different organizations, and now shares what it is that HubSpot is actually providing you that allows you that flexibility. And I mean, it's a place that really, I mean, I've never worked with HubSpot, but I've worked with a lot of HubSpotters, and I think the culture there, from what you're saying and from what a lot of people have told me, is just quite awesome, and it really enables you to reach your goals, to do the things you want to do. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share on that and like how it compares, and any appreciation for the HubSpot culture that you want to share once we're on the topic.
yeah, no, I mean, like I said, coming from a couple other organizations that are not, the greatest, you learn to appreciate what you got here. So, and number one thing is we're selling an awesome product, right? People actually need it. And like when you talk to them a year down the line, when the renewal's coming up and they're like, hey, this worked awesome, right? You feel a lot better about what you're doing. And I think also internally, like it's a place that, breeds success, in a place that breeds competition, right? Like in a healthy way. Everybody in sales, it's a little bit competitive. So like when you see so many people succeeding around you, it just makes you want to succeed as well. So, I mean, like I said, in an organization where most people were not succeeding. So when you're in a place like this, in an environment that like a lot of people are winning, you obviously want to become a winner as well.
Love it. Love it. All right. So here's to becoming a winner, man. Now, Gabe, any recommendations that you have for somebody who wants to become a winner at HubSpot, who's starting out? What would you say they should do? How should they approach their work at HubSpot? How should they approach their sales?
I'd say number one thing, just be organized. And this comes from somebody that's not very organized, but I've learned to be, because when you're in sales, particularly in SMB, again, just because that's the only world I've been in here at HubSpot, and I said it before, you got a lot of things thrown your way, a lot of moving parts. So as long as you have a process on your day to day and you know beforehand how you're going to approach that day, you're going to see success, right? In the times that I've fallen short, it's always because I did not follow that process. Yeah, so that'll be my number one thing.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us. And thanks everybody for listening. All right. Well, this was Selling with HubSpot with Gabe Sosa. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Lucho.